السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله. So we will go ahead and get started, inshallah ta'ala. Sorry for the delay with this technology, we're still learning it. So before we get started, let's see if we can review our last lesson. Who will be able to remind me one of the sections we covered in our last lesson? Yes, Maria? Excellent. So we were talking about sujood. Okay, first question I'm going to ask you is, how many limbs do we prostrate from? Don't say the answer loud, just raise your hand if you know it. How many limbs do we prostrate from? Shuaib? 7 limbs, mashallah. So when you're doing sujood, when you're doing prostration, we do prostration from 7 limbs of our body. So let's see if we can name them. Yes, mate. Okay, the knees is one of them. So the 2 knees. Yes, Muhammad. The forehead, mashallah. Salat. So yes, the toes of your feet. So a portion of the toes of your feet. And then continue. So we mentioned the forehead, we mentioned the toes, the knees. Yes, Aisha. Yes, the palms. Okay, the palms here. So that would make it 7. So the forehead is 1. The palms, the 2 of them, that would make it 3. Your knees are 2, that would make it 5. And then your toes are 2. Okay, that would make it 7. So those are the 7 limbs of prostration. Let's see if we can remember a few things about the conditions of sujood. What are some of the conditions of sujood? When you're doing sujood, there are certain conditions that we're supposed to fulfill for your sujood to be a valid one. Anyone? Yes, Said? Okay, the forehead touching the ground, so that means you have to place the full weight of your head on the floor. Say that your forehead and also your nose or part of it will be able to touch the floor. Okay? Yes, Umayma? MashaAllah. So whenever you're going down for sujood, you should not be going down for anything else except sujood. So if you drop money and you're about to pick it up, or if someone threw something at you and you are just trying to escape from the hit and then you fell on the floor, that will not count as sujood. So whenever you're going down for sujood, your intention, or whatever you're intending for, has to be sujood only, mashallah. There's one important one I'm looking for, which is very common to these boys here. So whenever you're doing sujood, yes, salat. So that one has been mentioned, but there's something about the forehead. So has to touch the ground, or otherwise, what do we mean? Yeah, so your forehead has to be exposed. It cannot be covered. Okay? So if you have your hoodie, or your hat is all the way up here, your eyelashes, then that's not going to be a sujood. So the forehead has to be exposed. Alright, so we'll go ahead and get started with our today's lesson. I'll ask you more tomorrow, inshallah. Okay. Okay, let me borrow your cap. I'm not sure where I put mine. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله. So we will go ahead and get started inshallah ta'ala. Sorry for the delay with this technology, we're still learning it. So before we get started, let's see if we can review our last lesson. Who will be able to remind me one of the sections we covered in our last lesson? Yes, Maria? Excellent. So we were talking about sujood. Okay, first question I'm going to ask you is, how many limbs do we prostrate from? Don't say the answer loud, just raise your hand if you know it. How many limbs do we prostrate from? Shuaib? 7 limbs, mashallah. So when you're doing sujood, when you're doing prostration, we do prostration from 7 limbs of our body. So let's see if we can name them. Yes, Mike? Okay, the knees is one of them. So the 2 knees. Yes, Muhammad? The forehead, mashallah. Salat? So yes, the toes of your feet. So a portion of the toes of your feet. And then, continue. So we mentioned the forehead, we mentioned the toes, the knees. Yes, Aisha. Yes, the palms. Okay, the palms here. So that would make it 7. So the forehead is 1. The palms, the 2 of them, that would make it 3. Your knees are 2, that would make it 5. And then your toes are 2, okay, that would make it 7. So those are the 7 limbs of prostration. Let's see if we can remember a few things about the conditions of sujood. What are some of the conditions of sujood? When you're doing sujood, there are certain conditions that we're supposed to fulfill for your sujood to be a valid one. Anyone? Yes, right? Okay, the forehead touching the ground, so that means you have to place the full weight of your head on the floor. Such that your forehead and also your nose or part of it will be able to touch the floor. Okay? Yes, Umayma? MashaAllah. So whenever you're going down for sujood, you should not be going down for anything else except sujood. So if you drop money and you're about to pick it up, or if someone threw something at you and you were just trying to escape from the hit and then you fell on the floor, that will not count as sujood. So whenever you're going down for sujood, your intention, or whatever you're intending for, has to be sujood only, mashallah. There's one important one I'm looking for, which is very common to these boys here. So whenever you're doing sujood, yes, salat.
Your forehead has to touch the ground.
So that one has been mentioned, but there's something about the forehead. So has to touch the ground, or otherwise, what do we mean? Yeah, so your forehead has to be exposed. It cannot be covered. Okay? So if you have your hoodie, or your hat is all the way up here, to your eyelashes, then that's not going to be a sujood. So the forehead has to be exposed. Alright, so we'll go ahead and get started with our today's lesson. I'll ask you more tomorrow, inshallah. Okay. Okay, let me borrow your pen. I'm not sure where I put mine. Okay, on page 61. Page 61. In your books, go to page 61. Faslun is another section. So we're going to start today from Awqatu Salati Khamsun. So page 61. Awqatu Salati Khamsun. The times of Salah are 5. So again, before I even tell you about this 5, how many times do we pray a day? In a day? We pray 5 times a day, right? So I remember some time back, my dad asked me a question about how do I know when it's Dhuhr time or Asr time or Isha time. So today we are going to learn about that, inshallah. So the times of Salah are 5. Okay, so the Awqatu Salati Khamsun. So Faslun is another section. Awqatu Salati Khamsun. The times of Salah are 5. Okay, the first one. أول وقت الظهر زوال الشمس وآخره مسير ظل شيء مثله غير ظل الاستواء. So if you're looking at your book, page 61. أول وقت الظهر زوال الشمس وآخره مسير ظل شيء مثله غير ظل الاستواء. So the time of Dhuhr begins after the sun descends from its zenith. So the zenith is when the sun is right here on top of your head, straight up. That is when we have the zenith. So when will Dhuhr start? Dhuhr will start when the sun descends from on top of your head, when it shifts towards the sunset side. That is that's the beginning of the time of Dhuhr. So if you have no watch and you are not sure what time to pray Dhuhr, or you are in a place where you have no one to ask about the time, so again, even though in today's case, most of us do not depend on this because we have those mobile phones and we have those Rolex watch, right? Yeah, so you'll be able to tell the time. We have different means of knowing what time it is. But like in the old days, when there was no technology, no computers, no phones, no watch, how did people know when time to pray is? They use this. So this is in our kitab. So the time of Dhuhr begins when the sun shifts from the zenith. So it shifts towards the sunset side. Okay, so the time of Dhuhr begins after the sun descends from its zenith. So it is no longer here. It just shifts a little bit to the side. Okay, towards the sunset side. So if the sun sets from this side, it's going like this. So when the sun is on top of your head, it's not the whole time yet. But when it shifts this way, a little bit towards the sunset side, that is when the Dhuhr time begins. And it will end. وآخره مسير ظل شيء مثله غير ظل الاستواء. It will end when an object's shadow equals its length. So it will end when an object and its shadow are of the same length. So when you stand outside, you look at the length of your shadow. If the length of your shadow is the same as your height, then that is the end of the whole time. And that will be the beginning of Asr time. Yeah. So it is when an object's shadow equals its length, in addition to the length of its shadow at the time of Zawal, at the time of the zenith, when the sun is on top of your head, whatever shadow you have under your feet. So that plus, when you measure your shadow, if it is the same length as your height, or maybe you had this pen here. If you place it somewhere and then you measure the height of this pen and then the height of the shadow, if they are equal, then that is the end of Dhuhr time. Okay? So Dhuhr begins when the sun shifts from the zenith. It shifts to the side, and then it ends when the length of the shadow of an object, when the shadow equals the length of that object. That's the end of Dhuhr time. And then number 2, so again, for most of these, the end of a certain prayer is also the beginning of the other prayer. Okay? Because when Dhuhr ends, what's next? Asr. So from here you can know the beginning of Dhuhr time will, Asr time will be when the shadow, the length of the shadow equals the height of, or the length of the object. So وأول وقت العصر إذا صار ظل كل شيء مثله وزاد قليلا. So the time of Asr begins when the object's shadow equals its length in addition to the length of its shadow at the time of Zawal, which is the same thing we mentioned there. وآخره, and then the end of Asr time is غروب الشمس, when the sun sets. So Asr time begins, so even though this translation is a little bit different. In the Kitab it says وأول وقت العصر, the beginning of Asr time is إذا صار ظل كل شيء مثله, when the length of the shadow of an object, when the object and its shadow are of the same length, وزاد قليلا, and there's a little bit addition. So we want to have a distinction between the Dhuhr time and the Asr time. So Dhuhr time ends when the object's shadow is the same length as the object itself. So for Asr we add a little bit. So when you measure the length of the object and the shadow, when they are equal, that is the end of Dhuhr time. So for Asr time we add a little bit. So وزاد قليلا, there's a little bit addition to the shadow. And the end of Asr time will be when the sun sets. Okay? So أول وقت العصر, the beginning of Asr time is إذا صار ظل كل شيء مثله وزاد قليلا. It is when the length of the shadow of an object is the same as the object and there's a little bit addition to it. وآخره, the end of Asr time is غروب الشمس, when the sun sets. Now number 3, وأول وقت المغرب, so the time of Maghrib begins غروب الشمس. So this is easy one. We all know Maghrib time, right? Everyone can know when Maghrib time is. Very easy. Maghrib time begins from sunset. وأول وقت المغرب, the beginning of Maghrib time is غروب الشمس, from sunset. وآخره, and then the end of Maghrib time is غروب الشفق الأحمر, is Maghrib ends with the disappearance of the red horizon. So when you look at the sky, when the sun sets, you will still be able to see some light, right? There will still be a little bit light. There are different colors of the sky. So you wait until the red coloring from the sky disappears. That is when Maghrib ends. And then that will be when Isha starts. So the end of Maghrib time is the disappearance of the red horizon. So the red horizon, especially when you look at the sky towards the sunset, the sky will have different colors. So when the red coloring disappears, that is when the end of Maghrib time is. And then وأول وقت العشاء, the beginning of Isha time will be غروب الشفق الأحمر. The end when the red horizon disappears. That is when Isha starts. And then وآخره, so the end of Isha will be طلوع الفجر الصادق, is the appearance of Fajr Sadiq, or the dawn. Okay? So you have seen during Ramadan time, what do we say? You are not supposed to eat from dawn to when? To dusk. That's what we say, right? From dawn to dusk. So you're not supposed to eat or drink anything from dawn to dusk. So dawn is when the Fajr prayer starts. So again, I'm not sure if any of us wakes up in the morning and looks at the sky to see if we have a Fajr Sadiq or a Fajr Kadhib. So it's basically you look at the sky, and then when the dawn appears, there's a fake one that will appear a little bit before the Fajr time. That will go a vertical way. So you'll see a little bit light towards from where the sun rises from. You'll see a little bit light that goes a vertical way. That's not the right one. The one we want, the Fajr Sadiq, the true one, is the one that goes horizontal like this. So So you'll be able to see the light, and then it goes in a horizontal way. So when you see that light, that is when Fajr begins. Okay? So that's called a Fajr Sadiq. Fajr Sadiq basically means it's a true Fajr. So that will tell you have also the fake one. The fake one, the light you see in the before Fajr time, that will go a vertical way. It's called the Fajr Kadib. That's not the beginning of the Fajr prayer. The Fajr prayer starts at the dawn. The way you will know is you look at the sky, and then when you see that light, which goes in a horizontal way, it goes this way, then that's called the Fajr Sadiq. So that's when the Fajr prayer starts, and then when does it end? I mean, that is when Isha ends. Okay, that is the end of Isha prayer. When that Fajr Sadiq appears, then that is the end of Isha, and that will be the beginning for Fajr prayer. For Fajr prayer. So وأول وقت الصبح, the beginning of Fajr prayer is طلوع الفجر الصادق. So it's the appearance of that Fajr Sadiq, or from dawn, the one we just mentioned. And when does it end? وآخره, the end of Fajr prayer is طلوع الشمس. When? Until sunrise. So you still have the Fajr prayer until sunrise. So the beginning is when the Fajr Sadiq of the dawn appears, when you see that light which goes the horizontal way, that is the beginning of Fajr prayer. The end of Fajr prayer is sunrise. Okay. Again, in the beginning of the chapter of Salah, again we mentioned, if you miss a Salah, we had those two excuses. You either overslept or you forgot it. So if you wake up at the time of sunrise, or you even woke up after sunrise, are you going to say, oh, Fajr is gone, I'm not supposed to pray? Is that what you were supposed to say?
No.
No. What should we do?
Pray.
We still pray. Okay? We still pray. Because you fall under that category of the excuses. So, A'dad Salat Itnani, the excuse for delaying Salah were two. So, unknown on Nisyan. You either overslept or you forgot about it. So, if you slept during the night time and for some reason you could not wake up, and then the moment you wake up it was 10 o'clock in the morning, you are still supposed to pray. Okay? You are still supposed to pray. So let me go over this real quick one more time. Awqatu salati khamsun, the times of salah are 5. Awwalu waqti al-dhuhr, the beginning of dhuhr time is zawalu shams. It's when the sun descends from its zenith. It's when it moves from your overhead. It shifts to the side. وآخره, the end of dhuhr time is مسير ظل شيء مثله غير ظل الاستواء, is when an object's shadow equals its length. When an object's shadow and its length are of the same height, then that is the end of dhuhr time. And then we go to Asr. وأول وقت العصر, the beginning of Asr time is إذا صار ظل كل شيء مثله وزاد قليلا, is when an object's shadow equals its length, and then you add a little bit. وآخره, the end of Asr time is غروب الشمس, sunset. And then we come to Maghrib time. وأول وقت المغرب, the beginning of Maghrib time is غروب الشمس, sunset. So when the sun sets, that is the beginning of Maghrib time. وآخره, the end of Maghrib time is غروب الشفق الأحمر, is when the red horizon disappears. And then وأول وقت العشاء, the beginning of Isha time is غروب الشفق الأحمر, is when the red horizon disappears. وآخره, and the end is طلوع الفجر الصادق, is when the Fajr Sadiq appears, or until dawn time. And then وأول وقت الصبح, the beginning of Fajr prayer is طلوع الفجر الصادق, is when the Fajr Sadiq appears. The one we just mentioned, that goes in the horizontal way. وآخره, and the end of Fajr prayer is طلوع الشمس, sunrise. So those are the 5 times that we pray. Those are the times that each prayer falls under this category. Okay, then we move on to the next slide. So here we learn about the horizons. الأشفاق ثلاثة, So we are still on page 61. But now when we were talking about Maghrib and Isha, we were talking about Shafaq al-Ahmar, the disappearance of the red horizon. So from there you know maybe there are some other colors, right? So al-ashfaq thalathatun. So the horizons are three of them. So there are three types of horizons. Ahmar, we have the red one, asfar, yellow one, and abiyad, a white. So basically we are talking about these are the sky colors during the night time. Okay? The sky colors during the night time, not during the daytime. Okay? Al-ashfaq, the horizons are three, thalathatun, ahmar wa asfar wa abiyad. Ahmar is red, asfar is yellow, abiyad is white. Al-ahmaru maghribun. So the red horizon is at the time of Maghrib. Remember in our last slide we said Maghrib time ends when? When the red horizon disappears. So Al-ahmar maghrib. So the red horizon is at the time of Maghrib. Wal-asfar wal-abyadu isha'un. So the yellow and the white horizons are at the time of Isha. So once the red one disappears, then the other colors you'll be able to see in the sky are some yellow colors and also some white colors. Those colors belong to Isha time. And then it continues, you'll see وَيُنْدَبُ تَأْخِيرُ صَلَاةِ الْعِشَاءِ إِلَىٰ أَنْ يَغِيبَ الشَّفَقُ الْأَصْفَرُ وَالْأَبْيَضُ. So if you're looking at your book, you'll be able to see وَيُنْدَبُ تأخير صلاة العشاء. So it is sunnah to delay the Isha prayer. It is sunnah that you delay the Isha prayer إلى أن يغيب الشفق الأصفر والأبيض, until these two horizons, the yellow and the white ones, disappear. Okay? So we said Maghrib, we have the red horizon. So when this disappears is when Maghrib ends. And then during Isha time, we had some other colors like the yellow and the white colors. So it is sunnah. It is not a wajib. It is sunnah that you delay the Isha prayer until also those two colors disappear. Okay? Until the yellow and the white horizon disappear from the sky. And it's completely dark. And that is when we're going to start praying Isha. Can I move on? Okay. Again, we just mentioned three horizons, okay? Ahmar, Asfar, Abyad. Ahmar, Asfar, Abyad. Ahmar is the red horizon. The Asfar is the yellow horizon. And the Abyad is the white horizon. The Ahmar belongs to the Maghrib prayer. And then the other two, they belong to the Isha prayer. And it is sunnah that you wait your Isha until those two horizons, the yellow and the white, also disappear from the sky. And when you look at the sky, everything you see is dark. That is when it's good time to pray Isha. Okay, another important concept about Salah again. Okay? See, like sometimes we assume that we know everything about Salah. But then when you look at these books, you wonder like there are a lot of details that we were not even aware of existed. Okay? So if you go to page 63, فصل تحرم الصلاة التي ليس لها سبب متقدم ولا مقارن في 5 أوقات. تحرم الصلاة. So again you wonder, there are times when you are not allowed to pray. Salah becomes haram. Haram means that even if you do it, instead of getting reward, what are you getting? Punishment. So you are told there are times of the day that Salah becomes haram. So تحرم الصلاة التي ليس لها سبب متقدم ولا مقارن في 5 أوقات. There are 5 times in a day during which it is haram to offer Salah which do not have an immediate or preceding cause. Okay, so Do you see the specification here? There's no immediate reason for you to pray, or there's no preceding cause for you to pray. And then we will look at that. So basically means you're just trying to pray a sunnah prayer. Sunnah prayer that has no cause at all. Then if you're going to pray a sunnah prayer that has no cause, then these 5 times you are not allowed to pray. So number 1, عند طلوع الشمس حتى ترتفع قدر رمح. So number 1 is at the time of sunrise, until the sun rises to the extent of the height of a spear. So as soon as the sun rises, again we're saying you have already prayed your Fajr prayer. Okay, now it is about sunrise time. So when the sun, at the time of sunrise, if you wanted to pray some sunnah prayer, you wait. You are not allowed to pray a sunnah prayer at sunrise. You wait until the height of the sun. When you look at it from a distance, like there's no measuring tape. But like when you look at your eyes, you have to wait until the sun rises to the extent of the height of a spear. Spear, what? Do you know what a spear is? Hmm? Arrow? Yeah. One. Okay. So you may not know how tall it is, but like basically it means you wait until that you think, okay, the sun has now risen fully. It is out. Okay? Then after that you can start your prayers. But you do not pray a sunnah prayer at the time of sunrise. At the time of sunrise. You wait a little bit till you realize that the sun has now fully risen. It's no longer in smoke. Number 2, وعند الاستواء في غير يوم الجمعة حتى تزول. At the time when the sun is at its zenith, until it declines except on Fridays. So the one we were talking about right now, when the sun is overhead, right here. When the sun is exactly overhead right here, at that time you don't pray in a sunnah. You wait until the sun shifts to the side. Okay, you wait until it shifts to the side. So it is haram to pray a sunnah prayer that has no immediate or preceding cause. At the time when the sun is at the zenith, at the forehead, at the overhead here. You wait until it descends or it shifts to a side. Then after that you can start your prayer. Number 3, and then I'll come back to this later on. Number 3, وعند الإسفرار حتى تغرب. وعند الإسفرار حتى تغرب. At the time when the sun becomes yellow or pale until sunset. وعند الإسفرار حتى تغرب. At the time when the sun becomes yellow or pale until sunset. So this is like very close. Little bit before the Maghrib time. Okay? It is about to be Maghrib time, but it's not Maghrib time yet. You can see the color, the sun is about to set. So you wait until the sun sets fully. Number 4, وبعد صلاة الصبح حتى تطلع الشمس. وبعد صلاة الصبح حتى تطلع الشمس. After Fajr prayer until sunrise. After Fajr prayer until sunrise. So when you pray Fajr, there's no sunnah after Fajr prayer. When you pray your Fajr prayer, there's no sunnah after that. You wait until sunrise and then you can do your duha prayer. Okay? But if you want to pray sunnah, you have to do it before the Fajr prayer. Once you pray your Fajr prayer, there's no sunnah after it. Okay? And then finally, number 5, وَبَعْدَ صَلَاةِ الْعَصْرِ حَتَّى تَغْرُبَ. After Asr prayer until also sunset. So when you pray Asr, there's no sunnah after Asr prayer. Okay? See, the other prayers like Dhuhr and Maghrib and Isha, of course they have sunnah after you pray them. But for Fajr and Asr, those 2 prayers, Fajr prayer and Asr prayer, once you pray them, after them, there's no sunnah after them. Okay? There's no sunnah after them. And then here this sunnah we are saying, it's a sunnah that has no immediate cause or a preceding cause. Let's say you prayed your asr, you left the masjid, and then after an hour you came back. It's not Maghrib time yet, but you walk into the masjid. Whenever when we come into the masjid, what do we pray? We pray a sunnah called Tahiyyatul Masjid. Okay? You are greeting the masjid. Okay, whenever you come into the masjid, it is sunnah that we pray 2 rak'ah. It's called Tahiyyatul Masjid. So that kind of a prayer has a cause. Because you just walk into the masjid and you want to pray Tahiyyatul Masjid. So for that one, this does not apply to it. The prayers, the sunnah we are talking about are ones that have no cause at all. There's no cause which is immediate or a preceding cause. Maybe you overslept and you miss your prayer. And then you woke up at the time of the zenith, when the sun is overhead. You still pray. Okay? Because that prayer has a reason. So we are talking about a prayer which has no reason at all. You just want to pray sunnah. But if the prayer you want to do has some kind of reasoning, some kind of cause, maybe it's a prayer you missed, or maybe you came into the masjid, then those ones have cause. Okay? You can pray. But if you want to pray at just a general sunnah to get more reward, then not at specific times. Okay? So, not at the time of sunrise, you don't pray that, you wait a little bit. And then also not at the time when the sun's at the zenith, you wait a little bit till the sun shifts. Number 3, you wait at the time when the sun becomes yellow or pale until sunset. That's a little bit before Maghrib. It looks like Maghrib, but it's not Maghrib yet. Okay, so you wait until the sun fully sets. And then number 4, it's after Fajr prayer until sunrise. So once you pray your Fajr prayer, no more sunnah. And then after Asr prayer also, no more sunnah until Maghrib time. And the okay. I'm going to ask you all this tomorrow, inshallah. Okay, next page on page 64. First alone, another section. Sakatatul salati sittatun. Sakatatul salati sittatun. So the pause in salah are 6. A pause basically means when you remain quiet. You don't say anything at all. Okay? So you pause for a little bit. So there are 6 times in a prayer that we are supposed to pause. Number 1, بين تكبيرة الإحرام ودعاء الافتتاح. بين تكبيرة الإحرام ودعاء الافتتاح. So between takbirat al-ihram and the opening prayer. So when I say takbirat al-ihram, what do I mean? What is takbirat al-ihram? Anyone? Yes. Allahu Akbar. So you are starting your prayer. Okay? You come with intention and you said Allahu Akbar. So last week we talked about this. A sunnah dua if you know it. If you do not know it, it is not part of the pillars of salah. But it's a sunnah. So when you say Allahu Akbar, there's a dua that we can read. So they are like different narrations. And the ones we do is, if you say وَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِي الَّذِي فَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ حَنِيفًا وَمَا أَنَا. So that one is called the dua iftitah. So when you say Allahu Akbar and before you start reading that dua, you pause a little bit. You say Allahu Akbar, so you pause. It's not like a long silence. Just a little bit you pause. So that's number 1. Between Allahu Akbar and the opening prayer. And then number 2. وَبَيْنَ دُعَاءِ الْإِفْتِتَاحِ وَالتَّعَوُّذِ. وَبَيْنَ دُعَاءِ الْإِفْتِتَاحِ وَالتَّعَوُّذِ. Between the opening prayer and the ta'awwud. What is ta'awwud? Last time we didn't share it. Ta'awwud mahal. Malay Ta'awud. Yes, Muhammad? MashaAllah. It's A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim. It's called Ta'awud. Okay? Ta'awud. So, you say Allahu Akbar and then you read your Dua Iftitah and then you say A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim. So, between the opening prayer and A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim, between them, you also pause a little bit. And then number 3. وبين الفاتحة والتعوذ. وبين الفاتحة والتعوذ. So between أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم and Surah Al-Fatiha. So when you say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, you pause and then بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Okay, so a little pause. Number 4. وبين آخر الفاتحة وآمين. Then between the completion of Surah Al-Fatiha and saying Ameen. See, when we do غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَالضَّالِّينَ and Ameen. Okay? You don't say وَالضَّالِّينَ Ameen. Not at the same time. You pause a little bit. So you say وَالضَّالِّينَ Ameen. So you pause a little bit. Breathe. Okay? You breathe. And number 5, وَبَيْنَ آمين وَالسُّورَةِ. وَبَيْنَ آمين وَالسُّورَةِ. So between Ameen and the next surah. So if after Surah Al-Fatiha, if you want to read another surah, that is part of the sunnah prayer, right? I mean the sunnah of the salah. Surah Al-Fatiha is must. But if you want to add another surah, yeah, it is sunnah. So if you want to add another surah, so you wait. When you say Ameen, then you pause a little bit and then you can start your next surah. And then finally, وَبَيْنَ السُّورَةِ وَالرُّكُوعِ. Between the surah and going down for ruku'. So let's say you have read Surah Ikhlas. Okay? لَمْ يَلِدْ وَلَمْ يُولَدْ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. And then you want to go down for ruku'. So you kufuwan ahad and then Allahu Akbar. You pause a little bit. Okay? So those are the 6 times during prayer when we are supposed to pause. Okay? And then there are certain times you may pause because you are reading a long surah and then you get tired. Yeah, you just take a breath. That's okay. Okay? It's okay. But these 6 times, it is recommended that you pause for that little bit time. So the first one is when you say Allahu Akbar and before you read your Dua Iftitah. Number 2 is when you finish reading the Dua, the opening prayer, and before you say A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim. And this is between when you say A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim and before you start Surah Al-Fatiha. And the next one is once you are done with Surah Al-Fatiha, before you say Ameen, a little pause between them. And the next one is when you say Ameen and before you start another surah, you pause a little bit. And then finally, when you're done with your other surah and before you go down for ruku', between them you pause a little bit. Okay. Any questions? Then. I cannot even see your face. Yeah. Okay? This part, we good with it? Okay, let's see if we can add 2 more, just 1 more. On page 65, فصل الأركان التي تلزمه فيها الطمأنينة 4. الأركان التي تلزمه فيها الطمأنينة 4. Even this one is not going to be something new. Here we are talking about the times or the places, the postures where it is compulsory that we come up with طمأنينة. Okay? الطمأنينة, you have to come with a composure. Al-Tumanina, we also said, is when you are supposed to remain motionless. So we have covered this already. when we were learning about Arkanul Salah, we covered this part already. Because we said one pillar was ruku', and then the next pillar was remain motionless in your ruku'. When you do i'tidal, and then you have to remain motionless in your i'tidal. And then when you do sujood, we said you have to remain motionless in your sujood. And then when you sit back up from your first sajda, you have to remain motionless. So it's the same thing. It just basically has been repeated. It's not new. Okay? So the postures where composure is compulsory, there are 4 postures in which tumanina or composure is compulsory. So tumanina, in other words, you remain motionless for the moment you are in that pillar. Okay, stop it, guys. So number 1, ar-ruku'. So in your ruku', so when you go down for your ruku', you remain motionless. So that one, you have to remain motionless in your ruku'. The first one. Number 2, wal-i'tidal. The i'tidal is when you straighten up from your ruku'. So you say, Sami Allahu liman hamida. So you have to stand upright. Okay? You have to stand upright. And then number 3, was sujood, in your sajda. So when you go down for your sujood, you have to remain also motionless. Give yourself a time that you can read the adhkar. Subhana rabbiyal a'la. Okay? And then number 4, wal julusu bayna sajdatayn. Wal julusu bayna sajdatayn. The sitting between the 2 sajda. So you have done your first sujood, and then you sit back up, and then read the dua. رب اغفر لي وارحمني واجبرني وارفعني وارزقني واهدني. However many dua you know, read. Just stay in that sitting position for a little bit. For a little bit. So those are the 4 times that we are supposed to come with tumanina. The 4 times that we are supposed to come with tumanina. It's during ruku', i'tidal, sujood, and the sitting between the 2 sajda. Those 4 times. Very easy, right? No. And then you ask yourself, what's tumanina? Okay? Another we explained already. And then now the Shaykh also gives us the meaning of tumanina. Still on page 65. الطمأنينة هي سكون بعد حركة. So الطمأنينة is a pause after movement. So that you move. So you are giving yourself a pause. So الطمأنينة هي سكون بعد حركة بحيث يستقر كل عضو محله بقدر سبحان الله. So الطمأنينة is a pause after movement to such extent that every limb remains in this place for the duration of reciting one Subhanallah. Okay? So, the first meaning is, in the beginning, it's a pause after a movement. So let's say you were standing up, you finish your Fatiha, you go down for ruku'. No, I moved. So I moved. So when I do my ruku', so I have to pause in my ruku'. Because I just moved, I was standing up, I just came down for ruku'. So I moved. So you have to pause after a movement. And then for a duration of at least one Subhanallah. So like when I do my ruku', at least Subhana Rabbiyal Azim wa bihamdi. This is for that moment. So that's called tumanina. So a pause after movement to such extent that every limb of your body will remain in this place for the duration of reciting one Subhanallah. Okay. So that's called tumanina. Again, in short time it means remain motionless for a little bit of time. So that is what tumanina is. So tumanina, remain motionless for a little bit. So we have about 9 minutes. We can cover this next one. Yeah, I'll let you go 10 minutes for Isha, inshallah. Yeah, we may not finish this today, but we'll just get started. So, asbabu sujudu sahwi arba'atun. So, still on page 65. Asbabu sujudu sahwi arba'atun. So, the cause for sujood sahwi. Sujood sahwi, it means what? A prostration that you do after you forget something in the prayer. So sahwi means something you forget. So the cause of sujood sahwi, or the prostration of forgetfulness, are four. So there are four things. If they happen during the prayer time, then you are supposed to come up with a sujood sahwi. A sujood sahwi. So it's not like your other sujood. Because when you do your rak'ah, every rak'ah we have two sajda. So this will be another sujood. Even though you do it the same way as you do every other sujood, but it is called a sujood sahwi. Okay? It is specific. It has a specific name. It's a sujood you come with after something happens in your salah. So what are the four causes of sujood sahwi? Number one, الأول ترك بعض من أبعاد الصلاة أو بعض البعض. So ترك بعض من أبعاد الصلاة أو بعض البعض is leaving out some of the sunnah ab'ad, main sunnah, either completely or partly. We'll also learn about this inshallah. So if you leave out some of the main sunnah, so in the salah we have like the wajib parts and we have some sunnah parts. The sunnah parts will be categorized into two other categories. Some of them are the main sunnah. If you leave them out, you come with sujood sahwi. Okay? So we also going to learn about ab'ad salah. For an example will be if you leave the first tashahhud. So now you are praying Isha and then you skip the first at-tahiyyat. So the first at-tahiyyat is a main sunnah. So if you leave it out, your salah is still okay. But whenever you are done with the salah, you come up with sujood sahwi. So you're done with your salah, and then before you say assalamu alaikum, you go down and then you do two sujood. Okay, because you forgot to sit for the first at-tahiyyat. Okay, so you're praying Isha. After the two rak'ah, it is sunnah that you sit down for at-tahiyyat. If you forget it, let's say you're done and then you found yourself standing, you don't go back for that at-tahiyyat. No. Once you stand up, you continue with your salah. And then once you sit for your last at-tahiyyat, and then you are done with it, before you say assalamu alaikum, you go down and then you do two sajda. Those are called sujood sahwi. You're doing that because you forgot the first tahiyyat. So that's what this is. Leaving out some of the main sunnah, either partly or completely. Number two, فعل ما يبطل عمده ولا يبطل سهوه إذا فعله ناسيا. So is to forgetfully do an action that will nullify the salah if it was done intentionally. So if you forgetfully do an action that will nullify the salah if it was done intentionally. Let's see, you are in your salah. As you are praying, you turn your head like this. If you do that forgetfully, then your salah will still be okay. At the end, once you are done with your last tahiyyat, you do two sajda. But if you turn your head like this intentionally, then your whole salah is nullified. Or another one will be, let's say when you pray 4 rak'ah for Isha, and then you intentionally add another one. You say, I'm going to make it 5 of them. If you do that intentionally, then your whole salah will be nullified. But if you add another rak'ah, forgetful, you did not know that you added one, then if you suspect that maybe you have done 5 rak'ah, what you will do is you also come with sujood sahwi. It's always before you say assalamu alaikum. Okay? So it's doing an action that will nullify salah if it was done intentionally. But if you do it forgetfully, you only come with sujood sahwi. And then number 3, نقل ركن قولي إلى غير محله. نقل ركن قولي إلى غير محله, to recite a verbal integral of salah in the wrong place, basically. If you read a verbal integral in the wrong place, maybe you are sitting down for at-tahiyyat, and then you found yourself reading Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. See, the Fatiha is one of the pillars of salah, but now you are reading the Fatiha in the wrong place. And then if you realize, oh, I'm reading my Fatiha in the wrong place, then at the end of salah, you come with sujood al-sahwi. Your salah is still okay, because you're doing this out of forgetfulness. Or maybe when you are standing, and instead of reading Fatiha, you are doing at-tahiyyat al-mubarakat, and you are standing. And then once you realize, oh, I'm reading at-tahiyyat in the wrong place, then you go back, just finish, go back, read your Fatiha, and then once you're done with your salah, before you say Assalamu alaikum, you do 2 sajda. And then the last one, number 4. إيقاع ركن فعلي مع احتمال الزيادة. I think this I mentioned already. So to perform a physical integral with the possibility of it being an extra integral. So if you perform an extra integral, a physical pillar, maybe you added 1 more rak'ah. Okay? Also the opposite is the same. In your prayer you thought, maybe have I done 3 or 4? So you are not sure. Have I prayed 3 rak'ah or 4 rak'ah? So if it's Isha time, you know you are supposed to pray 4. So you tell yourself, okay, I prayed only 3, and then you add another one, you make it 4, and then you come with sujood al-sahwi. And then on the other end, if you ask yourself, have I done 4 or 5? Then you tell yourself that you have done 4, and then you stop there, and then you come with sujood al-sahwi. So it's to perform a physical integral with the possibility of it being an extra integral. You ask yourself 3 or 4, and then you say it's 3, because you're sure of the 3, and you're supposed to have 4. Even if you have prayed 4, but you are not sure, so what you will do is you add another one. Then it might be an extra one, but you're not sure, because you ask yourself, have I done 3 rak'ah? Have I done 4 rak'ah? Then the ruling will be, you tell yourself that you have done only 3, and then you add another one, make it 4, and then at the end of salah, you come with sujood al-sahwi. Okay? The sajda of forgetfulness. So the sujood al-sahwi will help rectify any errors or something that you have done out of forgetfulness in your prayers. Okay? So those are the 4 causes of sujood al-sahwi. Inshallah, we'll continue from here tomorrow. So we'll spend a little bit more time with you tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala. And for today, we're going to stop there, inshallah. For those of you who have no wudu, it's about the Isha time, inshallah. Boys, go down, make wudu.